When my daughter Margaret looked me dead in the eye at Thanksgiving dinner and said, "Stop begging for money, it's embarrassing," I felt something inside me crack like ice on a frozen lake. The entire table went quiet. Even the grandkids stopped chattering. My son-in-law, Mark, stared at his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. I held her gaze, begging, asking for the $15,000 I'd loaned her for a kitchen renovation, money she promised to pay back by Christmas, was now begging. "Actually, honey," I'd said just moments before, my voice light, "I have the text messages where you promised to pay it back. I just thought we could discuss a payment plan." That's when she dropped her fork. "Mom, seriously, we're having Thanksgiving dinner. This is so inappropriate." David, my 34-year-old son, chimed in, "Yeah, Mom, it's kind of tacky to talk about money at family dinner." Tacky. It was tacky for me to mention the $35,000 of my retirement savings they'd borrowed. But it wasn't tacky for them to spend it on luxury vacations and designer handbags while I stretched my teacher's pension to make ends meet. Sarah, my youngest at 31, delivered the final cut. We all contribute in different ways. Just because you have savings doesn't mean you should keep track of every penny like some loan shark. My savings. 4 decades of grading papers until midnight. And then Margaret's words. "Honestly, Mom, stop begging for money. It's embarrassing. We're your children, not your debtors." I sat there for a moment, letting those words sink in. I looked at their faces. Margaret, flushed with indignation. David, looking smug. Sarah, nodding in agreement. They were right. I wasn't their creditor. I was their bank, and I'd just been foreclosed on. "You're absolutely right, sweetheart," I said, my voice sweet as sugar. I picked up my phone from the table. I should stop begging. I smiled, unlocked the screen, and texted my bank. "Cancel all authorized user cards immediately." I sent another text to my credit card company and one more to my investment advisor. The beautiful thing about being the primary account holder is that you have all the power. By morning, all 3 of my ungrateful children would discover that their financial safety net had vanished faster than their respect for me. I finished my dinner in silence while they chatted about Black Friday sales, completely oblivious to the financial earthquake I'd just triggered. For the first time in months, I was smiling a real smile. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. How did I, Eleanor Walsh, a 62-year-old retired high school English teacher, become the family ATM? It happened gradually, starting after my husband Tom died 3 years ago. It started with a phone call that seemed so innocent at the time. "Mom, I need help." Margaret's voice was tearful, desperate. It was January 2022, 2 months after Tom's funeral. Her husband Mark had taken a pay cut. They had 2 kids and a mortgage. What widow wouldn't help her struggling daughter? I wrote that first check for $3,000 without hesitation. It was temporary. She promised to pay me back in 6 months. 6 months passed, no mention of repayment. Instead, another call. "The kids need school supplies. Money is tight. Could you help with $500? Of course I could. They were grieving their father, too. Then David's car broke down, an $8,000 down payment. He'd pay me back from his tax refund. Then Sarah needed $12,000 to clear her credit card debt. She'd pay me back when she got her promotion. By early 2024, their requests had gotten bigger and their promises vaguer. Margaret's kitchen renovation, David's investment opportunity that turned out to be a crypto scam, Sarah's endless shopping sprees. The irony? While I was emptying my savings, I was eating generic soup and wearing cardigans I'd owned for a decade. My own children thought I was wealthy because I helped them, but I was slowly draining my teacher's pension to subsidize their middle-class lifestyles. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself they'd remember my generosity. I told myself a lot of nonsense. The wake-up call should have been David's birthday party last year. I gave him a check for $2,000 for his rent. An hour later, I overheard him telling his girlfriend's parents, "My rich mom always comes through when I need cash." Rich. The woman who hadn't bought new shoes in 2 years was rich. But I kept writing checks. Because that's what mothers do, right? We sacrifice. We give until it hurts. What I didn't realize was that my children had stopped seeing me as a person. I wasn't their mother anymore. I was their personal bank, and they'd gotten very comfortable making withdrawals without any intention of making deposits. You want to know the real kick in the teeth? It wasn't just the money. It was everything I'd sacrificed, only to be treated like an inconvenience. Take Margaret's wedding in 2015. She wanted the perfect Pinterest wedding on a Walmart budget. So guess who stepped in? I used $12,000 from my retirement fund for the photographer, the flowers, and the open bar. My daughter deserved her dream day. The thank you card I received had my name spelled wrong. Eleanor, David's college graduation in 2018. He needed professional attire for interviews. I bought him 3 complete outfits, an investment in his future. He wore those suits to land his current job, the one that paid him enough for his trendy apartment, but never enough to pay back his mother. And Sarah, sweet Sarah, who called me crying at 2:10 a.m. when her boyfriend dumped her, when she got fired, when she just needed to listen. I was always there. But when I mentioned at Easter that I was thinking about getting my furnace repaired, you know what Sarah said? Mom, you should really learn to budget better. It's not healthy to stress about money at your age. Budget better. The woman whose credit cards I'd paid off twice was giving me financial advice. I'd become invisible to them, except when they needed something. They'd show up for Sunday dinners, complaining about their problems while I served meals cooked from clearance groceries. Margaret would vent about her marriage while I did her family's laundry. David would lecture me about politics while I helped him move apartments for the 4th time. Sarah would scroll through her phone while I babysat her cat. I was the unpaid therapist, babysitter, housekeeper, and bank, all rolled into one convenient mother-shaped package. They genuinely believed they were doing me a favor by spending time with me. Margaret actually said that once. Mom, we make an effort to visit because we know you get lonely since Dad died, but you can't expect us to solve all your problems. My problems. Wanting my own money back was my problem. The night after Thanksgiving, while my phone buzzed incessantly, I sat in my quiet house and made a detailed list. Every loan, every gift, every favor since Tom died. The total came to just over $53,000 in cash. $53,000 I'd never see again, given to children who thought asking for it back was embarrassing. Well, they hadn't seen embarrassing yet. My phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m. on Black Friday. Margaret's name flashed on the screen. I was busy drinking my coffee and reading the newspaper. Why rush? I had nowhere to be. By 7:30, I had 15 missed calls and a string of texts that were pathetically predictable. Mom, my card was declined at Target. There must be some mistake. Mom, call me. Something's wrong with the bank. Mom, answer your phone. This is urgent. I finished my crossword puzzle and started on the Sudoku. David was next. Mom, what the hell? My card doesn't work and the joint account is frozen. Did you do something? Such a bright boy, my David. Only took him 4 hours to figure out Mommy wasn't playing anymore. Sarah's message was my personal favorite. Mom, this is really mature. Are you seriously going to ruin our credit over a family disagreement? A family disagreement. That's what we were calling systematic financial exploitation now. I made myself a nice breakfast. Scrambled eggs with cheese, fresh fruit, and real orange juice instead of the powder mix I'd been buying to save money. I might as well enjoy the luxury of a peaceful morning before the storm really hit. At 10:15, Margaret finally showed up at my front door. I saw her through the peephole, pacing on my porch like a caged animal, her face red. I opened the door, wearing my most innocent smile. Good morning, sweetheart. You're up early for a holiday. Mom, what did you do? Her voice was strained, trying not to scream. I had breakfast. Eggs were perfect. Would you like some coffee? This isn't funny. Our cards aren't working. Mark had to abandon his shopping cart at the grocery store. The kids are asking why Daddy can't buy their Christmas presents. Ah, the children. Of course, she'd bring up the children. Have you tried paying with your own money? Margaret's jaw dropped. What do you mean, our own money? You gave us access to those accounts. I gave you emergency access to my accounts for actual emergencies, not for funding your lifestyle while you ignore your debts to me. Her face went from red to white. Those were gifts, Mom. You said, I never said any such thing. I have every text message, every email, every written promise you made to pay me back. Would you like me to read them to you? That's when the tears started. Big, dramatic tears, just like when she was 7 and didn't get her way. Mom, please, we can't afford groceries without those cards. The kids need clothes. Christmas is coming. Funny how you could afford a weekend trip to Chicago last month but can't afford groceries now. She had no answer for that. I want you to leave, I said calmly. When you're ready to have an adult conversation about paying back the money you borrowed, you can call and schedule an appointment. Until then, stay off my property. You can't be serious. Try me, I said, and closed the door. I took a long, hot bath with expensive bath salts I'd been saving. I painted my nails burgundy and ordered Thai takeout. It felt like Christmas morning and my birthday rolled into one. The family intervention was David's idea. He called Sunday evening using his most reasonable voice. Mom, we need to sit down and work this out like adults. This has gone too far. I agreed to meet them at Margaret's house Tuesday evening. I was curious to see what strategy they'd cooked up. I arrived exactly on time, wearing my best navy dress and the pearl necklace Tom had given me. If we were having a family meeting, I was going to look like the dignified woman I'd forgotten I could be. They were all there, Margaret and Mark, David and his girlfriend, Sarah and her current boyfriend. They'd arranged themselves around the living room like a tribunal, all serious faces and folded hands. Margaret was the spokesperson. Mom, we've been talking and we think you're having some kind of emotional breakdown. I nearly laughed. An emotional breakdown. Holding people accountable was now a sign of mental instability. We're worried about you, David chimed in. This isn't like you. You've always been so generous and understanding. Understanding. Yes, I'd been very understanding while they picked my financial bones clean. Sarah leaned forward, her face a mask of sympathy. Mom, we know Dad's death was hard on you. Maybe you should talk to someone, a grief counselor. There it was, the grief card. Obviously, the only reason a woman would want her money back was unresolved trauma. You think I'm having a breakdown because I want you to honor your debts? I asked pleasantly. Mom, those weren't debts, Margaret said, exasperated. Family helps family. You helped us, and someday we'll help you. When? When exactly will that magical someday arrive? Because I've been waiting 3 years for it. Mark, bless his heart, tried to play mediator. Mrs. Walsh, maybe we could work out a payment plan. You mean like the payment plan Margaret agreed to last spring? The one where she was going to pay me $500 a month starting in June? Because unless my math is wrong, that means she currently owes me $3,000 just in missed payments. The room went very quiet. Or maybe, I continued, turning to David, we could follow your plan where you were going to pay me back from your tax refund. That was 18 months ago. David, did you forget to file taxes or did you just forget about me? David's face turned red. Mom, you're not being accurate. Yes, I am being accurate. Sarah, would you like to tell everyone about your plan to pay me back from your promotion at the department store? Sarah's face crumpled. Mom, stop. The promotion you got 10 months ago. The one you celebrated with a shopping spree that you documented on Instagram for everyone to see. I stood up, smoothing down my dress. Here's my payment plan. You have 60 days to return every penny you borrowed with a reasonable payment schedule we all agree to in writing, or I consult with a lawyer about my options. The silence was deafening. You can't sue your own children, Margaret whispered. I smiled at her. Watch me. I was back home for less than an hour, the adrenaline from the confrontation still singing in my veins, when my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, assuming it was one of them calling from a friend's phone, but I answered. Hello? Mrs. Walsh? Eleanor? The voice was male and hushed. Who is this? A long pause. It's Mark. I gripped the phone. Mark, Margaret's husband. The man who sat in silence at Thanksgiving and stared at his plate during the intervention. Mark, what do you want? I only have a minute. Margaret's in the shower. His voice was fast, nervous. This is wrong. What they're doing, what she's doing. It's wrong. You're not crazy. I was stunned into silence. Listen to me, he said, his words tumbling out. You're right about the money, but you're missing something bigger. What are you talking about? Your old P.O. box. The one you had for a while after Tom died when the mail was getting messed up. You need to go there. You need to check the mail. Why? What's there? Just go. She's been bragging to her boyfriend about being smart. Just check the box, Eleanor, please. Mark, why are you telling me this? Are you trying to help me or her? I have to go. The line clicked dead. I stood in my kitchen, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. I had no idea what his motives were. Was this a trap? Was he trying to protect his own skin, separating himself from his wife? Or was this a genuine, if cowardly, act of conscience? It didn't matter. He had given me a lead. The next morning, I drove to the post office branch across town. The clerk looked at me over her glasses when I asked about the old P.O. box. We've been marking mail, return to sender on that box for almost 2 years, ma'am. We sent notices. I know. I'm sorry. I was going through a lot. Can I just check it one last time? She sighed, disappeared into the back, and returned with a small, dusty bundle of mail held together with a rubber band. Most of it was junk, but at the bottom were 5 envelopes from my bank. Bank statements, the ones I thought had just been missing. I sat in my car in the parking lot and tore open the first one. It was from 18 months ago. I scanned the charges, my gas, my groceries, and then Zara, $148.50, Sephora, $92, United Airlines, $433.10. My blood went cold. I tore open the next one, and the next. It was a pattern. Gas, restaurants I'd never been to, online shopping sprees. I drove to the bank and asked for a full printout of the last 18 months for that specific credit card, the one I'd given Sarah access to only for emergencies. I spent the next 2 hours at my kitchen table with a highlighter. The total was $2,400. It wasn't just that she'd borrowed $12,000. She'd been actively stealing from me, month after month, using my card number for her daily life. Mark was right. This was bigger. This wasn't just about unpaid loans. This was about fraud. Thursday morning brought the first sign of cracking. Sarah showed up at 8 a.m., clutching an envelope. Mom, please, I'm trying to make this right. She handed me the envelope. It was full of crumpled bills, $200. It's all I have right now, but I can get more. I can pick up extra shifts, maybe sell some things. The desperation in her voice should have moved me. A month ago, it would have. Sarah, sit down. She perched on the edge of the couch. When you were 18, I said, my voice quiet, you overdrew your checking account. Do you remember what I told you about managing money? Her face went pale. That borrowing money creates an obligation, and obligations have to be honored. And what did I say about family and trust? That family relationships should be built on respect, not convenience. So explain to me, I said, how borrowing money with no intention of paying it back shows respect. She started crying then. Real, ugly sobs. I didn't mean for it to happen. I always planned to pay you back. But things came up, and it seemed like you didn't really need the money anyway because you kept offering to help. Because I kept offering to help. So you thought that meant you didn't have to pay me back. No, I screwed up, Mom. I know I screwed up, but cutting us off completely isn't going to fix anything. I stood up and walked to my desk. I picked up the folder of highlighted bank statements and dropped it on the coffee table in front of her. What's this? She whispered. This is $2,400 in unauthorized charges. This is you using my credit card for gas, restaurants, and online shopping for the past year." Her face went from white to green. I was going to tell you." "When? When were you going to tell me? You needed those things, Mom. My job doesn't pay enough." "So you decided to supplement your income by stealing from your mother." "It wasn't stealing. I'm your daughter." My daughter, who took advantage of me during the most difficult period of my life. My daughter who thought I was too grief-stricken or too trusting to notice. I pointed to the phone. "I've made an appointment to speak with a lawyer next week, Sarah. What you've done isn't just about family loans. Using someone's credit card without permission is fraud." The color drained from her face. You're not going to press charges. You wouldn't." "Try me. You have 60 days to come up with a payment plan for everything, the loans and the unauthorized charges, or I'm taking legal action." She left without another word. An hour later, my phone rang. Margaret. "Mom, you can't threaten Sarah with jail. She's your baby." "My baby is a 31-year-old woman who committed credit card fraud. And if she faces legal consequences, it will be because she chose to steal from her mother." 2 weeks later brought an unexpected visitor, my sister Linda from Michigan. She stood on my doorstep with the grim expression of someone delivering bad news. "Eleanor, we need to talk." I let her in. I knew exactly why she was here. "Margaret called me," she said, barely sitting down. "She's worried about you. She says you're not acting like yourself." "Really? How exactly am I supposed to act when my children systematically exploit me?" Linda waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, honey, it's not exploitation when it's family. You've always been generous. Why are you being so harsh now?" My children had called in reinforcements, the one family member who'd always thought I was too soft. "Linda, did Margaret mention that Sarah has been using my credit card without permission for over a year?" Linda looked uncomfortable. She said there might have been some confusion about card access. "Confusion? That's what we're calling unauthorized use now. Linda, they think I'm embarrassing for wanting my money back." "They're struggling, Eleanor. Young people today." "Linda, Margaret drives a car newer than mine. David spent more on his last vacation than I spend on groceries in 4 months. These aren't struggling young people. These are adults who think their mother exists to subsidize their lifestyle." "I think you should forgive them and move on," she said, her mind clearly made up. "Family is more important than money." "You're right," I said, walking her to the door. "Family is more important than money. That's why I'm so hurt that my family chose money over treating me with basic respect." After she left, I felt utterly alone. But I also felt a cold, hard clarity. I called the law office my friend Helen had recommended. I'd like to schedule a consultation to discuss my legal options regarding family financial disputes. January brought a series of desperate attempts to manipulate me. Margaret tried guilt. David tried logic. Sarah tried tears. None of it worked. What did work was my appointment with attorney Patricia Chen. She was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in a perfectly tailored suit. "Mrs. Walsh," she said after reviewing my folder of texts and statements, "you have several legal options. The unauthorized credit card use is definitely actionable. The loans without formal documentation are more challenging, but not impossible. What do you recommend? We start with a formal demand letter. Give them 90 days to respond with a payment plan. If they don't comply, we discuss litigation." That afternoon, certified letters went out to all 3 of my children. Official, legal, and absolutely terrifying. The response was immediate and predictable. Margaret called, sobbing. David showed up at my door, angry. Sarah sent a text calling me heartless, but none of them offered to pay me back. A week after the letters arrived, David called. His voice was different, not angry, broken. "Mom, you're right. I'm a mess. I need to come clean." I sat down. This was new. Go on. The $8,000. It wasn't for a car down payment. I have a gambling problem, Mom. I lost it all online. I was ashamed to tell you. He was crying. It sounded convincing. David, I know I'm getting help. I'm going to meetings, and I want to make it right. I don't have the money right now, but I have something else. What are you talking about? Dad. Before he died, he rented a storage unit. He was collecting old vinyl records, rare books. He told me it was an investment. The unit is paid up, but I don't have the key. The contents have to be worth at least what I owe you. You can have it. It's the least I can do. I was suspicious. Why didn't you sell this investment yourself? The paperwork is all in Dad's name. I couldn't access it. But you, as his wife, you can. Please, Mom. It's a show of good faith. I told Patricia. She was skeptical, but we followed the lead. It took a week. It cost $1,500 in legal fees to get a lien and have the unit opened. I stood with Patricia and the storage facility manager as they cut the lock. The door rolled up. It was filled with junk. Piles of old National Geographics, broken furniture, boxes of my old teaching supplies that Tom must have saved. There wasn't a single vinyl record, not one rare book. It was worthless. He played me, I said, my voice shaking with a cold, pure rage. Yes, he did, Patricia said. He played us both. He just bought himself a week of time and cost you more money. He was hoping to misdirect us. This confession was a lie. That was his biggest mistake. He hadn't just stolen from me. He hadn't just lied. He tried to make me a fool. I was enraged. The false lead was a declaration of war. David thought he was smart. Now I would show him what smart really looked like. If he was so interested in hidden assets, I would find out why. I went home and pulled out Tom's old address book. I found the number for Janet Morrison, his former business partner. Eleanor, she said, surprised. My goodness, it's been ages. How are you? I'm fine, Janet. I'm calling about something strange. I hope you don't mind. Of course not. What is it? Did he ever mention any separate accounts? Anything I might not have known about? There was a long pause. Eleanor, I probably shouldn't say this, but yes, Tom had a small business account for his consulting work. Nothing huge, maybe $20,000 or $30,000. He said he was saving it as a surprise for your retirement. My hand started shaking. Janet, has anyone else asked you about this account? Another pause. This is the strange part. Your son David called me last month. He was asking about Tom's old records, whether there were any assets overlooked during the estate settlement. He seemed very focused on separate accounts. I told him I couldn't share anything without authorization, of course. But Eleanor, if there is money out there, you should be the one to claim it. The storage unit wasn't a misdirection. It was a smokescreen. He was trying to get me to chase a worthless asset while he went after the real one. That afternoon, I drove to First National Bank with Tom's death certificate and our marriage license. After 2 hours of paperwork, the bank manager confirmed it. Mrs. Walsh, your husband did have a business account with us. The balance at the time of his death was $34,000. We've been trying to contact the estate for 3 years, but our letters were returned. They'd been sending them to Tom's old, closed office. Mrs. Walsh, the manager said, looking uncomfortable, I have to ask, has anyone else inquired about this account? My son, David Walsh. The manager nodded. He was here about 6 weeks ago. He claimed to be the executor of your husband's estate and asked about accessing the funds. When we asked for documentation, he said he'd get back to us. He never did. David had been trying to steal $34,000 that belonged to me, money I didn't even know existed. What do I need to do to claim this account? Since you're the surviving spouse, the funds belong to you. We just need you to complete this paperwork. By Thursday, $34,000 was deposited into my personal account, money my son had tried to steal while simultaneously borrowing from my pension. That evening, I did something that felt better than anything I'd done in months. I called David. "Hi, honey. I had the most interesting conversation with the bank today." Silence. "They told me all about your inquiry regarding your father's business account, the one you tried to access without authorization." "Mom, I can explain. I'm sure you can. Just like you explained the storage unit. Let me help you with the math, David. You were trying to steal $34,000 from your father's account at the exact same time you were borrowing $8,000 from my pension for a car you never bought. That's not just stealing, David. That's systematic fraud." The phone went quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. "Mom, please," he finally whispered. "I wasn't trying to hurt you." "No, you were just trying to rob me. There's a difference." I hung up and poured myself a glass of wine. Tomorrow, I was adding attempted bank fraud to my list of grievances. March brought the meeting I'd been anticipating. My 3 children had finally agreed to sit down with me and Patricia Chen. We met at Patricia's office. Margaret, David, and Sarah arrived with their own lawyer, a nervous young man named Rodriguez, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Patricia began. "We're here to discuss Mrs. Walsh's claims, approximately $53,000 in unpaid loans, unauthorized credit card charges totaling $2,400, and attempted fraud regarding Mr. Walsh's business account." Rodriguez shifted. "My clients maintain that the money transfers were gifts, not loans." Patricia slid a thick folder across the table. "These are copies of text messages and emails where all 3 defendants explicitly promised to repay. These are bank records showing the systematic pattern of requests and transfers." I watched their faces. Margaret looked sick. David stared at his hands. Sarah was crying quietly. "Furthermore," Patricia continued, "we have evidence that Mr. David Walsh attempted to access a bank account belonging to his deceased father without authorization. The bank has confirmed Mrs. Walsh is the legal owner of those funds." Rodriguez looked at his clients, then back at Patricia. He was defeated. "What are you asking for?" "Full repayment of all loans with interest, reimbursement for the unauthorized credit card charges, and a formal payment plan with legal enforcement mechanisms." "And if they can't afford that," Patricia's smile was razor sharp, "then we'll see them in court." The negotiations took 4 hours. In the end, my children agreed to everything. They would repay $5,400 in total. They would pay 6% annual interest from the original loan dates. They would submit to a 3-year payment plan with automatic deductions from their paychecks. They would cover all legal fees. If they defaulted, I could garnish their wages or place liens on their property. As we left the law office, Margaret grabbed my arm, her face desperate. "Mom, please, can't we work this out as a family?" I looked at her with the calm clarity that comes from finally seeing the truth. "We stopped being a family the moment you decided I was nothing more than a source of funding. This is just business now." That evening, I celebrated with dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. For the first time in 3 years, I ordered exactly what I wanted without checking the prices. My children had taught me a valuable lesson. Respect isn't given freely. Sometimes it has to be demanded, documented, and legally enforced. By May, the monthly payments were coming in like clockwork. Margaret, $587 per month. David, $634 per month. Sarah, $420 per month. It was amazing how responsible they became when their wages were being garnished. But the real surprise came when I decided to sort through Tom's papers more thoroughly. Hidden in his desk drawer, I found a manila envelope marked, "For Eleanor, open after my death." Inside was a letter that changed everything. "My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and there are things you need to know. The business account Janet probably told you about was supposed to be a surprise for our 35th anniversary. I wanted to take you to Ireland, like we always planned. But there's more. I've been having symptoms. Memory problems, confusion. I was terrified I was developing dementia, like my father. I didn't want to burden you. I told David about the account because I was afraid I might forget about it entirely, and I wanted to make sure you got the money eventually. I never meant for him to try to access it himself. You're stronger than you know, and you deserve better than a husband who is too proud to share his fears. Don't let the children take advantage of your kindness the way I sometimes did. You have my permission to be selfish for once. All my love, Tom P.S. There's a safety deposit box at Second National. The key is taped under my jewelry box. I sat in his study for an hour crying for the husband I'd lost and the fears he'd carried alone. But I also felt relief. Tom hadn't been trying to deceive me. He'd been trying to protect me. The key was exactly where he said it would be. The safety deposit box contained another surprise, $15,000 in savings bonds and a simple jewelry box. Inside was a note, for the strong, beautiful woman who deserves better than a man who kept secrets. I drove straight to the bank and deposited the bonds. Then I did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I went shopping for myself. New clothes, new shoes, a proper haircut at an expensive salon. I was done living like a pauper while funding their lives. That evening, I called each of my children. I found your father's letter, I told them. I understand now why David knew about the account, but that doesn't excuse trying to access it without telling me. Margaret was the first to speak. Mom, we didn't know about Dad's health fears. He never said anything. Your father was a proud man, I said, but that's not an excuse for how you've treated me since his death. We're sorry, Sarah said, and for the first time, she sounded like she meant it. Sorry doesn't give me back 3 years of being treated like an ATM, but it's a start. David cleared his throat. Mom, when the payments are done, do you think we can try to rebuild our relationship? I thought about that. Maybe, but it will be a different relationship, one based on mutual respect, not obligation or convenience. We understand, Margaret said. I hope you do, because the woman who wrote checks just to keep the peace is gone. You're going to have to earn your way back into my life. I hung up and sat on my back porch. For the first time since Tom died, I felt like myself again, strong, independent, and finally free. 2 years later, I was sitting in my new apartment in a lovely senior community. All 3 payment plans were current. David had just made his final payment 2 months early. My phone rang. It was Margaret. Mom, I wanted to call because David told us he's finished paying you back, and we wanted to ask, would you consider having dinner with us? All of us together? I looked out my window at the garden I'd planted. What kind of dinner are we talking about, Margaret? The kind where we pay, she said, her voice steady. The kind where we show up with genuine apologies and realistic expectations. The kind where we treat you like the intelligent, successful woman you are. That was the most mature thing any of them had said to me in 5 years. When did you have in mind? Whenever you're free. We know you have bridge club on Tuesdays, book group on Thursdays, and volunteer work on weekends. We can work around your schedule. They'd been paying attention. That was progress. Saturday evening would work, 7 hours, and Margaret? Yes, Mom. I'll choose the restaurant. The dinner was not a magical healing moment. There were no tears, no dramatic declarations of forgiveness. But there was something better. Respect. Sarah brought photos of her new apartment, the one she was paying for entirely on her own. David talked about his promotion and how managing debt payments had taught him to budget properly. Margaret mentioned she and Mark had started marriage counseling. None of them asked me for anything. When the check came, they divided it 3 ways and wouldn't let me contribute a penny. Mom, David said as we were leaving, I want you to know that paying you back wasn't punishment. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned what money actually costs. I learned what respect means, Sarah added. Margaret hugged me at my car. I learned that my mother is tougher than I ever gave her credit for, and I'm glad you didn't let us destroy that. As I drove home, I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago. grieving, lonely, desperate to maintain relationships that were harmful to me. That woman was gone. In her place was someone I actually liked, Eleanor Walsh, retired teacher, independent woman, bridge champion, and volunteer literacy coordinator. A woman who paid her own bills, chose her own friends, and demanded to be treated with dignity. My children had taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. They'd taught me that love without respect is worthless, that family relationships built on exploitation aren't worth preserving. I talk to my children every few weeks now. They visit occasionally. But the relationship is fundamentally different. I'm not their mother, the bank account. I'm not their mother, the enabler. I'm simply Eleanor. A woman they happen to be related to, who will treat them well if they reciprocate. Some people would say I was too harsh. That family should forgive and forget. But those people have never been systematically robbed by the people they raised. My children needed to learn that actions have consequences, that respect is earned, and that their mother was a person, not just a resource. It took 3 years in legal intervention, but they finally learned. And in the process, so did I. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.